Breaking news. Tensions explode in the South China Sea. The world woke up to urgent headlines on April 3, 2026. China issues fresh military warning to Philippines in South China Sea. Bold letters flashed on screens from Manila to Washington. Breaking news tickers ran across every major network. The South China Sea, that age-old cauldron of disputes, was once again the center of world attention. Sirens wailed across coastal bases in the Philippines. Navy ships scrambled into battle positions. The Chinese fleet moved like a steel wall across contested waters. The world held its breath as two nations, old adversaries, stared each other down. This was not just about rocks and reefs. This was about power, pride, and the future of a region. Reporters jostled for updates. Social media exploded with maps and photographs of warships. The atmosphere was electric, tense, and unpredictable. Everyone asked the same question. Would this be the spark that ignited a regional firestorm? The South China Sea had long been a powder keg. China claimed almost all of it, drawing its infamous nine-dash line like a curved knife across blue waters. The Philippines, backed by international law and old alliances, refused to bow. Each side built outposts, ran patrols, and played dangerous games of chicken. In early 2026, the situation grew sharper. China launched new patrols near Scarborough Shoal and Mischief Reef. The Philippines answered with joint exercises and new patrol vessels, many financed by allies. The world watched as rival flags fluttered over disputed reefs. Oil, gas, and fishing rights fueled the confrontation, but national pride was the real tinderbox. Military analysts warned that one wrong move could set off a chain reaction. Diplomats hustled behind closed doors, but the language of gunboats and warplanes spoke loudest. The air was thick with threats and counter-threats. Every ship movement, every radar ping, every public warning brought the region closer to the edge. Then, China made its first move. On April 5, 2026, China delivered a stark ultimatum. All Philippine military and civilian vessels must withdraw from Second Thomas Shoal within 24 hours, warned a spokesman for China's Southern Theater Command. Failure to comply will result in decisive action. The world braced for a clash. Chinese warships formed a blockade around the disputed shoal. Loudspeakers blared warnings in English and Mandarin. Drones circled overhead, broadcasting live feeds to Beijing and Manila. The Philippine supply ship, BRP Sierra Madre, stood firm, its crew refusing to abandon their post. The warning was clear, but the response was unexpected. Instead of pulling out, the Philippines doubled down. International observers watched as the standoff stretched into hours, then days. Philippine President Ana Morales appeared on live television, her voice calm but resolute. "We will not be bullied in our own waters," she declared. "Our sailors will hold the line." Crowds in Manila cheered. Social media erupted in support. The world took notice. Filipino Marines on the BRP Sierra Madre received extra supplies by helicopter. Local fishermen formed a civilian flotilla, encircling the shoal. Philippine Air Force jets roared overhead, sending a message of their own. The blockade was challenged not with fire, but with presence and unity. China hesitated. Images of determined Filipino defenders flooded international news. The world rallied behind Manila. The warning, meant to intimidate, instead created sympathy for the Philippines and embarrassment for Beijing. The first warning had backfired. Philippine resolve grew stronger. Global attention shifted to the next move. Frustrated by the standoff, China escalated. On April 10th, its defense ministry announced a temporary no-fly zone over a wide swath of the South China Sea. The warning stated, all foreign aircraft entering this airspace do so at their own risk. Chinese fighter jets began aggressive patrols. The no-fly zone covered areas where Philippine surveillance planes regularly flew. Beijing hoped this would ground Philippine intelligence efforts and chill Allied support. Tensions rose as radar screens lit up with hostile contacts. Pilots on both sides braced for confrontation. The world watched, fearing a disaster in the crowded skies above contested seas. This was China's second military warning. But again, things did not go as planned. Within just a few hours, a Philippine P-3 Orion maritime patrol plane entered the declared no-fly zone, escorted by two Fa-50 fighter jets. Chinese pilots got on the radio, issuing warnings and demanding the aircraft turn back. The reply from the Philippine side was calm. "We are operating in international airspace." What followed was a tense aerial ballet. Chinese jets made some pretty close passes, but the Philippine formation held steady. Then, all of a sudden, an American P-8 Poseidon appeared, flying right alongside the Philippine group. The United States, a treaty ally, had joined the skies. Now, Beijing faced a real dilemma. Filipino pilots kept to their course. Cameras were rolling, capturing every moment. The world saw a small nation, backed by a superpower, refusing to be cowed. China's no-fly zone, instead of intimidating, became a stage for international solidarity. Beijing's attempt to assert dominance only ended up highlighting its own isolation. In the end, the warning backfired, strengthening alliances instead of spreading fear. China's frustration really peaked at this point. On April 15th, Beijing issued its third warning. Any joint military drills by the Philippines with external powers in the South China Sea will be considered a provocation and met with countermeasures. This was aimed directly at the planned Philippine-US-Japan naval exercises. But despite the threat, the drills went ahead. Warships from all three nations sailed in formation near Palawan. Submarines practiced maneuvers beneath the waves. The Philippine Navy's new multi-role frigate, BRP Jose Rizal, led the charge. Chinese destroyers shadowed the exercise, but they kept their distance. Cameras broadcast the spectacle live, and crowds on Philippine beaches waved flags and cheered. The exercises sent a really clear message. The Philippines was not alone, and Beijing's threats just couldn't stop regional cooperation. China's warning, intended to divide and intimidate, actually unified the region instead. Observers even called it a diplomatic own goal. The world reacted quickly. Southeast Asian nations, which had long been wary of offending China, started discussing new patrols and information sharing. Vietnam opened up talks with Manila. Indonesia called for an emergency ASEAN summit. Even faraway powers like Australia and the United Kingdom announced freedom of navigation missions. Military analysts saw a shift happening. Instead of isolating Manila, China's warnings had actually built a coalition. The Philippines started getting offers of new patrol boats and surveillance equipment. Regional security architecture began to shift, with more joint drills and intelligence exchanges. China tried to soften its language, but honestly, the damage was already done. The region was now more united, and Manila's position was stronger than ever before. The failed warnings had created a new reality. Diplomats in both Beijing and Washington scrambled to keep the peace, but the message was clear. The South China Sea had changed. 3 warnings, 3 backfires. The events of 2026 reshaped the South China Sea. China's attempts to intimidate the Philippines only rallied support for Manila and exposed Beijing's limits. The world saw a smaller nation stand tall, backed by new alliances and international law. Regional stability improved, not through fear, but through cooperation. New rules for the sea began to emerge. The Philippines gained respect and security guarantees. China, though still powerful, was forced to rethink its approach. International opinion shifted. The South China Sea remained tense, but hope flickered on the horizon. The failed warnings had shown that unity and resolve could change the balance, even in one of the world's most dangerous waters.